Speedrunning is about completing a game in the fastest possible time. The word speedrun is a compound of two words that both indicate frenetic movement. So, it might surprise you that a lot of speedrunning is actually waiting. The opposite of speed, the opposite of running. That's what I'm doing now. I'm waiting to play the game. Most games don't tell you how long you have to wait, but in Portal, we can see a countdown timer right there telling us how long until the run really starts. A lot of Portal runners actually start their save files a little bit into the run, so they don't have to wait 45 seconds to start. But I actually like the waiting. It helps me mentally prepare for the journey ahead. When I go for physical runs, which is not nearly as often as I'd like, I need to remind myself to breathe. And that's what waiting is to me while speedrunning, taking a moment to breathe. Outside of the game, speedrunners wait for other things. Wait for the next time they can play the game, wait for good RNG to happen, wait to break their personal best, or if they're really good, a world record. Every failed attempt means the runner has to wait a little bit longer to reach that high again. In my experience, every time we reach a milestone, it means a longer wait until the next one. This waiting is what makes victory so sweet, the elation I will talk about at the end of this weird video. This is a video about speedrunning Portal, specifically my quest to beat the game in under 20 minutes. Portal has 19 test chambers. For each chamber, I will muse on a particular aspect of speedrunning or Portal that I find interesting or noteworthy. Each musing is meant to be short and open-ended. I first played Portal early in college and I loved it. So earlier this year, when looking for a game to speedrun, it was a natural pick. As for who I am, I'm a crummy speedrunner. In the past year, I have learned to speedrun Celeste, Portal, and Minesweeper, none very successfully if we're looking at leaderboards, but I love this hobby. I love the mindset of improvement that speedrunning gives you, I love watching people break games, and I love talking about it. In fact, I am getting my PhD in media studies, and a portion of my research involves speedrunning. I started speedrunning Portal in June. I played for about an hour or two every day for a month. The fruit of this practice you are witnessing here. Of course, I'm not alone in speedrunning Portal. There's a much bigger community dedicated to playing this fantastic game. Portal, like speedrunning in general, is about movement. Portal has a unique kind of movement, so it doesn't surprise me that it is a relatively popular game to speedrun. It is rare that a speedrunner runs in a vacuum, and I am no exception. I learned from guides made by much better players than myself. Some community members came into my stream to give me advice, and I watched high-level players to gain inspiration. To outsiders, I think speedrunning can look like a solitary pursuit. Most games we speedrun are single-player, and we aren't often directly racing against someone else. But what makes speedrunning so beautiful to me is how social this lonely hobby is. So make no mistake, this not quite excellent run of Portal stands on the shoulders of many other players who did a lot of the legwork for me. On that note, this is a special kind of run in the Portal community, a glitchless run. I abide by a set of rules that govern glitchless play. If you're interested in speedrunning Portal, I feel glitchless is the most accessible category for a beginner because it's pretty similar to the intended experience of the game. And most importantly, it's a lot of fun. Despite my best efforts, I still make mistakes while speedrunning. Here, I was supposed to catch the cube, instead it fell on my head. Some mistakes are so big we have to restart a run, others we just have to live with. This one probably lost me a few seconds, so I'm just gonna have to live with it. Every speedrunner must know what it's like to make mistakes, but mistakes are something I love about speedrunning. In many games, it can be difficult to discern if something was or was not a mistake, but since the speedrunner always knows what they intended to do, it is easy to tell what the mistake was and practice to fix it. One of the most fun things about speedrunning is pulling off dope tricks. Here you're going to see me toss the companion cube right onto the switch and nail the landing. I unfortunately did not have time to watch my triumphant cube throw because I was already moving on to the next objective, but I had to practice a lot to be able to make that throw consistently. Pulling off tricks is satisfying for both the player, who reaps the benefits of their efforts, and an audience, who might be experiencing something amazing for the first time. Here, at the end, I'm just burning time. GLaDOS is talking her head off, and the elevator won't go up until she's done. There's nothing I can do about it, so I destroy the camera in a little act of rebellion. Another time where all I can do is wait. One feature of Portal speedrunning that is quite useful is quick saving. It allows you to mess up and quickly reload before that mistake. Here, I was supposed to go in the hole, but as you see, I bounced out of it. I'm actually not entirely sure why this happened, but I do know that the ability to quick save and load, which I used so much I mapped it to the R and T keys, is a lifeline to the Portal speedrunner. Try to catch every time I quick save. That usually means I'm about to do something I tend to mess up. This is one of the harder tricks in the run. To be able to do it reliably, I had to practice this room for probably half an hour. After that, I still mess it up half the time. Practice takes a lot of forms in speedrunning. Sometimes it is doing a short segment or trick until you can do it consistently. Other times it is taking a long chunk of the game and trying to string a bunch of moves together. When you have a goal, practicing is a unique form of waiting, but like waiting, there's a joy to practicing. It's like learning a new skill and applying it. Speedrunners are often surrounded by danger. In this room, if I fall into the pit below, I die. If I get hit by the energy ball that is flying by the orange portal, I die. If I jump too early or too late out of this portal, I fall to my death. If I fail to jump immediately after hitting the ledge protruding from the wall, I die. The thing is, I have died in all these ways. Speedrunners find new ways to die all the time, and it can be frustrating, but the danger of speedrunning is part of what makes it so fun. You may have noticed on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a timer that counts up. This is LiveSplit, software designed to help speedrunners keep track of their runs. This one is keeping track of my current time and comparing each segment to my best ever segment, which is why they're all red. Without such software, we'd have to use personal soft watches or timer runs after recording them to get a good time, which would not be very convenient. External software not only makes speedrunning easier, but it brings the community together. I'm grateful for those people who put their talents towards making these things. Rhythm is pretty important when speedrunning, but this virtual dance is unfortunately not as simple as stepping out onto the dance floor. There are multiple rhythms the player must juggle. The rhythm of what the player can't control, the rhythm of what they can, the rhythm of the game as a whole, and the rhythm of their own body, which can be your own worst enemy while speedrunning. There can be a tension when learning new techniques between the old rhythm you've cultivated and the new one you're trying to carve out. Interestingly, a lot of speedrunning can be summed up by the player unlearning things, because in order to be the fastest, you must dispose of the old and embrace the new rhythm. It's here, just under the halfway point of our journey, that we finally get the second half of our portal gun. It's at this point that we really start thinking with portals. The game picks up from this point, and there's a lot of freedom afforded to the player. This also means that it gets a lot harder from this point on. For reference, I picked up the second half of the portal gun at 7 minutes and 5 seconds into this run, only 40 seconds slower than the world record at the time of this recording. I will end the run by being over 4.5 minutes slower than that record. This is one of the most suboptimal chambers of this entire run. As opposed to other chambers where I was doing my best to emulate the best, but messing up in the attempt, here I haven't been able to learn and execute the fastest strategies enough to be comfortable attempting them. Instead of doing a magnificent leap onto the higher floor, I'm just going to play it cool and get there slowly. And instead of tossing the cube casually onto the switch from like 20 meters away, I'll just go gently place it where it needs to be. There's no easy way to slice it. These are slow strategies. They waste my time. But if I had to learn every single strategy and implement them in order to enjoy Portal speedrunning, then I may have never started at all. Everyone is suboptimal until they are optimal. So enjoy being suboptimal, because while part of the goal is to get the best time, you should have fun along the way. I'm not sure how universal of an experience this is, but I am a superstitious speedrunner, and Chamber 13 is one I'm particularly suspicious of. As a result, I tend to be overly cautious when placing the cube and getting things in order, in part because I have a feeling, an itch, that if I don't die in Chamber 13, it's going to be a good run. This time, it turned out to be the case, but how many times did I sacrifice a better run at the altar of my own fear? This is my favorite chamber of the run, but don't blink, you might miss it. Yeah, you shoot 3 portals and you skip the whole challenge. But isn't cutting corners part of the fun of speedrunning anyways? Of course, the further you cut the corner, the more difficult the speedrun can get. Sometimes playing the game is knowing just how far to cut without going overboard. I talked about superstitions a moment ago, but the darker side of them while speedrunning is personal demons. Chamber 15 is a personal demon for me. It's a room I just tend to mess up quite often, even though it's one that I practice the most. Early on in the chamber, there's a cycle that the player has to beat or else they lose a couple seconds. I only ever beat that cycle in practice, never in an actual run. Then there are 3 complex tricks in a row which skip huge swaths of the intended challenge, but all of them are rather technical in execution and easy to mess up. This room, more than any other, has killed my runs, so the fact that I made no major mistakes here is perhaps the most contributing factor to me getting a personal best. I wonder, are such personal demons unique to each player, or do the same demons tend to haunt all speedrunners of a particular game? I can't tell, but I do know that my heart beats a little faster, my hands are a little sweatier, and my mind races a little quicker when I'm in Chamber 15. GLaDOS rambles for a while here, just gotta wait. Up to this point, we haven't talked too much about the specific features of Portal, so I'll spend the next 3 longer chambers talking about the game specifically. Despite how iconic Portal is, it's really quite simple and lightweight in its construction, and I think this is its greatest strength. For instance, the turrets are pretty much the only traditional adversary in the game, and they aren't even introduced until Chamber 16. Portal's turrets are incredibly well designed. Here is a list of good decisions. They are stationary, the red laser clearly indicates where they are looking, there's a delay between when they see you and when they shoot at you, they are about the size of a portal the player can shoot, and finally, the player can take a few shots before dying to them. This makes them ideal puzzle enemies. They don't hunt the player, they are obstacles to be overcome. For the speedrunner, it is quite nice that they are predictable, which allows us to plan specific strategies around them. These iconic turrets come in late and don't overstay their welcome. Now that we've talked about an enemy, let's talk about our only friend, the companion cube. This chamber is all about the cube. You need it to complete its challenges, whether you're playing the game glitchless or intended. The companion cube is as close of a friend you have in these puzzles. It functions like a key does in most adventure games. It is primarily used to unlock doors. Like the turrets, the cube is very elegantly designed. Well, I guess as much as a big, heavy cube can be. You use it to hold down buttons, climb things, unsuccessfully block energy balls, and to express your deepest, darkest fears. In this room, we use the intended companion cube, but also an unintended friend, one of GLaDOS' cameras. Funnily enough, we basically use it as a second cube. You'll see me use the camera again in the next room for a trick that I find even cooler. So let's give the camera the title of Honorary Cube for its efforts in helping us complete this challenge. The cube is a great tool for the speed run, especially in this room for glitchless, because the player has to use it to complete the challenge, as the final door won't open if you haven't brought it with you. This means there's an added complexity in the speedrunner's puzzle. In every other room, you just have to cross the finish line. In this room, you have to cross it with something else. Then you have to destroy it. I guess putting it into the incinerator is putting it down on one last button. But I don't have a chance to stop and think about killing my friend. I have to jet. As a closing thought, I'd just like to note that the turrets and cube are functionally identical once the turrets have been knocked down. So perhaps in an alternate reality, we run from the cubes and praise the turrets. The portal gun is unsurprisingly the defining feature of Portal. Functionally, it's clear that Valve's designers started with this inventive concept and built everything else in the game around it. A question I pose to you, viewer, is whether the portal gun is the question or the answer to the game's riddle. My gut instinct is to call it the answer. After all, it is the solution to the game's many spatial puzzles. The game's primary problem is how the player will get from point A to point B, and the answer is with the portal gun. But is it not also the question posed by the game? How do I use the portal gun to solve this puzzle? In some ways, the portal gun is both your friend, because it enables you to complete the game's puzzles, and it is your adversary. It is the limiting mechanic that you must utilize in order to succeed. So, is it the question or the answer? If you're snarky like me, you might answer both. But if that's the case, then the gun is a paradox, an answer to its own question, which feels equally unsatisfying. For the speedrunner, the portal gun is the perfect kind of tool. It modifies movement in predictable and interesting ways. If you've made it this far, you've started to notice that I use it to cut every corner I can. This is because the portal gun asks the speedrunner to think outside of the box, to use this tool not just to solve the game's puzzle, but to solve them in the fastest possible way. Some of the most fun games to speedrun have robust movement mechanics like this, because they don't just ask the runner to go fast, but beg them to consider how they will get from point A to point B. This is the final chamber and my favorite, because we transition to our escape. That's right, baby, full freedom awaits us beyond the pit of fire. There are only 19 test chambers, but 3 more loading screens to go. If we had audio, you'd hear GLaDOS freaking out because we completely skip her long, evil monologue. This is where the game really heats up. No more elevators, no more chambers, just a race to kill GLaDOS. Speedrunning is both an exercise in freedom and restraint. Like birds, we fly through these levels as fast as we can. When I watch runs, I marvel at how beautiful the movement is. The runner seems untethered from the game world around them. But the other side of this coin is that we are bound to the fastest strategies and movements. We have practiced them dozens, hundreds of times. The repetition has dug desire lines on our brains. When we mess up, and we know our pace can't beat our personal best, we often restart and hope for greener pastures, hardly a picture of freedom. But there's peace in memorization. It is fun to go fast, to resolutely focus on the task at hand, a task we have prepared for and is amazing to behold. Regardless, you should notice a complete change in rhythm as we start our escape. No more elevator, challenge, elevator. Our movement is more free form, which is a great change of pace for the game's story and the end of the run. It is important for speedrunners to have goals. Having a time in mind, something to strive for, separates speedrunning from idle play. These goals can take many different forms. Perhaps you want to be top 100 or hold the world record. Perhaps, like me, beating a game in under a certain minute marker might be your goal. Goals put the entire process of learning the game and executing the run into context. They help give us a reason to push beyond what we think is possible, to find new ways to progress. Goals can also be a double-edged sword. Spend too long not achieving one, and you can easily fall into despair, asking, what if I never make it? Setting achievable goals makes speedrunning more enjoyable in my experience, and when you reach a goal, you can always look ahead and set another. Alright, so here comes one of my favorite tricks in the entire run. The last trick I implemented on my way to sub 20 minutes. It highlights something I love about speedrunning, the unconventional ways we solve problems. The Portal Gun is basically an unconventional problem-solving machine, which is why I love it so much. So, the intractable problem in this section is that the missile turret you're about to see is the only way to break the glass. But that takes a lot of waiting, takes a lot of time. Fortunately, the turrets can also break glass, which means if we can find a way to bring a turret with us, voila, we skip an annoyingly long section. It's a little dangerous, the turret can kill you if you don't do it well, but it saves a lot of time. Also, you normally need to get a companion cube out of the tubes above in order to get access to the vent, but a chair from the office works just fine. These unconventional solutions help give speedrunning an air of mystique. They are why I love watching and playing them, to do unconventional and strange things. Pulling them off is incredibly satisfying and worth the effort. You may think that GLaDOS is the final boss of Portal, but for me, it's actually this difficult trick. Let's watch. I can't believe I pulled it off on my first try. I knew there was a chance I could reach my goal, but that final boss, that difficult in-air portal shooting, still stood in my way. That is the final trick in the run that I can seriously lose a lot of time on, which makes it, for me, the final boss. In certain speedruns, you can tell that the run is over when the runner starts to relax, even if the timer is still going. This is because the timer doesn't always end at the less important or skillful moment of the run. Though, Portal isn't exactly one of those games. We still have to kill GLaDOS. GLaDOS is a great villain. She is vindictive, spiteful, and all-powerful, which makes blowing her up quite fun. The final fight is a little bit of a mirror of Test Chamber 00. GLaDOS rambles for a good chunk of time, and in Glitchless, you just have to wait it out. Even with the waiting, I know that my heart was racing through this entire sequence. I really didn't want to mess up and not make it. You don't get on personal best pace that often, and the later in the run you maintain such a pace, the greater the worry that you might throw it away. Luckily, for the most part, even with my hands shaking, I managed to execute my strategies with only one minor hiccup near the end. One of the reasons speedrunning can be so difficult is that we get in our own way, and I think final bosses illuminate this fact quite clearly. In a run that isn't on pace for personal best, I rarely mess up the GLaDOS fight, but when everything is on the line, I start to overthink things. I get clammy, I get worried, I get anxious. Instead of being automatic, my own thoughts get in the way of my actions. In this way, I skip past those desire lines that have been grooved into my skull, and I try to reinvent the wheel, not believing in myself in the moment. So really, what I'm trying to say is that we are our own final boss. This is what makes final bosses so dangerous, so deadly. They are the moment of the true test, where success and failure balance on a knife's edge. This is why I speedrun, and why I suspect many others do, to test oneself and to come out on the other end victorious. All the anxiety, all the stress is not the end goal. The end goal is what happens when you break through the wall of failure and find success. And here we have it, victory. Even now, 6 months later, I still have a strong emotional reaction to seeing my goal met. In the moment, I was able to express myself with the game and enjoy my elation. If LiveSplit is correct, I got sub 20 in 77 attempts. I challenge you to break 20 minutes and fewer to feel what I felt. I promise you it is worth it. I'm so grateful you came along on this journey with me. Have a bright and wonderful day. If you liked my video, why don't you give it a like? If you want to see more stuff, subscribe and leave a comment down below telling me what you think of Portal speedrunning. These are my two cats though. It's Cleo and that's Oda. They're wonderful. They want you to watch more of my vids. Bye.